Welcome to episode 3 of the Indie Mosh Show. I'm Jenny Mosher, founder of Indie Mosh, and this series of podcasts is designed to demystify the self-publishing process as much as possible, so thanks for listening in. This episode is brought to you by 1000 Words Plus. If you've written a book, why not create a web page for life for that book at 1000wordsplus.com. Provide samples of your book's text to hook your readers in. Add links to where your book can be bought, plus links to your website and social media accounts. Display a panel showing your awesome Goodreads reviews. To find good books to read or to see how your book's webpage could look, visit 1000wordsplus.com today. And if you decide to list your book, then grab a freebie on me. Use coupon code IM03 at the checkout. That's India Mike 03 to get your lifetime listing for free. Indie Mosh has been helping Australians self-publish since 2009, and we've learned an awful lot since then, nearly all of it the hard way. In these podcasts, I aim to share that knowledge to make it easy for you to forge your own publishing path, either with or without our help. Today's topic is a summary of what editors and proofreaders do and how their services can help you publish a better book. First of all, we probably need to define the differences between editing and proofreading. As part of the publishing process, there are 3 main editing steps. The first is structural editing, the second is copy editing, also known as line editing, and the third is proofreading. Structural editing is the biggest job of all. It looks at the overall document and how it works. It does involve the micro level, spelling, punctuation and grammar, but is aimed more at the macro level, the big picture. It looks at whether there's too much weight placed in certain areas of the book or not in others. Your editor may suggest that you cut your manuscript by a certain number of words or a percentage or expand certain sections. They may suggest that you use fewer adverbs or more adjectives. They may point out that one of your characters has behaved inconsistently with the way they were set up, and that this won't make sense to the reader without some sort of explanation or further background information. They may suggest that your arguments need to be substantiated with external references, or that they sometimes contradict themselves. Editing can be confronting, and you can't afford to be too precious. It's your chance to get a professional's feedback and see what needs doing to your book to make it as marketable as possible. Even if you're not hoping to make money from your book, you still want to release the best book possible. After all, it's a reflection of you. Depending on the quality of the manuscript, the editor may give feedback without reading the entire manuscript first. This will depend on your contract with them, but they may read parts of it and make suggestions for you to revise your manuscript before they waste their time and, more importantly, your money, reading all of it. The editor doesn't own your manuscript, you do, so it's up to you to work with them in getting it up to scratch. It's not their job to rewrite it for you. Structural editing takes place before the book is laid out for print and before it is copy edited, which is sometimes also referred to as line editing because it's done line by line. There can be several rounds of revisions, and it can take many months or even years, depending on the author's aims for the book and the size of the project. The second stage in the process is copy editing or line editing, and this is a more detailed approach. The copy editor will read every word and will look for spelling, punctuation and grammar errors along with consistency errors. For example, they should pick up if the princess had blonde hair in chapter 2 but is suddenly a brunette in chapter 8. The copy editor will also tidy your manuscript for presentation consistency. For example, they may format numbers as words in a fiction text or make formatting suggestions about how certain things should be presented, such as putting the names of movies and songs in italics instead of quote marks. The copy editor will also, hopefully, pick up any anomalies introduced during the editing process. For instance, a character may acquire a nickname in chapter 23, but due to a change of occupation in chapter 4 as part of the editing process, this nickname may no longer make sense. The editor and author might overlook that as they're focused in a different area, but the copy editor, with fresh eyes on the job, will hopefully notice that the nickname or the reasoning for it no longer ties in. Copy editing is the last editing process carried out before the book is laid out for print and is probably the type of editing that most self-publishers are aware of and think of. Proofreading is the final last-minute check and takes place after the book is laid out for print. While proofreading seems like a second copy edit, it will also look at things like placement of headings, where things sit on the page, that chapter, section and page numbering is correct, that the title of the book is correct, that the author's name or pseudonym is correct, and will look at the final files as if they are a first-time reader. Although the proofreader is not meant to be looking for structural or editing issues, merely spelling, punctuation, grammar and presentation issues, they will raise anything that doesn't work for them. Proofreading is your last chance to get it right before you go into production. If you want to get the most value out of your editors and proofreaders, start by revising your manuscript as many times as you can stand before passing it on to someone else. This can be boring, tedious work, I agree, but the more you can do before handing it over, the quicker and easier, and less expensive, the editor's task will be. Take all the time you need. You wouldn't take a cake out of the oven if it was half-baked, would you? So don't send your book out into the world half-baked. Edit on screen for several rounds, as many as you can cope with. Then get your manuscript printed out at a local print shop and read it out loud from the paper version with a red pen in your hand. You'll be shocked at what you see on paper and how it sounds when you read it out loud and at what you've missed on screen. Make your edits on screen, working from the paper copy, and revise again. Print once more and reread. Only when you think you can't make it any better should you send it out for editing. To find an editor or proofreader isn't hard. The IndieMosh website has an experts page, tailored mostly towards Australian authors, but Aussie authors can also visit the IPED, Institute of Professional Editors website at iped-editors.org to find an accredited or professional editor. If you're outside Australia, run an internet search on the word editors and the name of your country. For example, Editors New Zealand or Editors South Africa to find the website for your local professionals. You might like to look for someone who advertises that they work in your genre, especially for non-fiction work. For instance, if you're writing a business book, then someone who specialises in illustrated children's books probably won't have the general knowledge you need about business, economics and psychology to help with your manuscript. And don't forget, if you're an Australian writing in American English, for example, you'll need a US editor to help you get it right. And it's not just the spelling you have to look out for. You need to remember that in Australia we take the garbage out and put petrol in the car. But in the States they take the trash out and fill the tank with gas. When you engage an editor, make clear your choices regarding style and your levels of tolerance for certain things. For instance, a classically trained editor will mark up sentences that finish with a preposition. However, if that doesn't bother you, and if you're self-publishing, then you can let them know that they should ignore any prepositions at the ends of sentences. Conversely, if that's something you're prone to but don't want to see in your book, mention it to your editor so that they know you want them to correct those sentences. On the whole, editors want to change as little as possible. They want to preserve your voice, your style, so that you deliver your book and not theirs. But they also want to help you publish the best product you can. So if your manuscript comes back with lots of marks and comments on it, don't be disillusioned. It's better to find out what's not working now in the early stages before you invest too much time and effort only to suffer public humiliation for releasing a too raw manuscript. One thing that will likely shock you is the cost of editing and proofreading unless you've been in business for yourself. The thing is, though, that if you understand what an editor does, then you'll understand what you're paying for and why they seemingly cost so much. I once had a client say to me, "Don't bother reading the whole thing, just let me know where the mistakes are so that I can correct them." Huh? How am I supposed to find the mistakes if I don't read it through? And that's the first thing you're paying for with an editor, their time. The time it takes them to read your manuscript. Every single word. And initially, this is the bulk of what you're paying for. You're then paying for their training, experience, education, general knowledge, technical expertise, and their compassion for you, the client. Believe it or not, we don't like telling people they've made a mess of their manuscript, so we do try to be nice about the mistakes and issues we find. You're also paying for the editor's problem-solving creativity and, quite frankly, a small overhead to cover their hard costs of computer and software equipment, ongoing training, professional memberships, and a wee bit of profit that they can hopefully slug away in their super fund. If you find an editor that you work well with, then hang on to them. Treat them right, pay their bills on time without complaint, and you'll do good work together. Let's think about your plumber. How much do you pay your plumber? There's probably a call-out fee, right? And then you pay them by the hour for however long they're there. And then you have to pay for the parts. Your plumber is a professional, and so is your editor. The difference is that your plumber probably isn't going to spend 3 or 4 days straight, or maybe even weeks or months, working for you. But take your plumber's bill and multiply that by 5 billable hours a day and see how that works out over a week. And I say 5 hours because, in reality, while an editor may work for 8 or often more, quite often they won't be billing for all of it. If they're thinking about how to solve a problem with your manuscript or doing some research into how to solve that problem, they will often do that on their own time until they have the answer. So when you're obtaining an editing or proofreading quote, bear your plumber's bill in mind, and it will help take a little of the potential bill shock out of the editing quote for you. If you truly can't afford an editor, or at least a proofreader, don't think you can do it all yourself. You can't. You know what you meant to type. You know all the background to your story. If you leave a bit out or misspell something, you're not likely to notice. If you change the name of a character or kill them off in an early chapter, you may forget about it and refer to them incorrectly in a later chapter, especially if your book has taken a year or more to write. While it's important to revise your manuscript several times yourself prior to setting it free, it's also important to have as many sets of fresh eyes go over it as you can find. So if you really truly can't stump up for an editor or proofreader, then ask people you know and trust, people who have better language and reading skills than you, to read your manuscript and to give you honest feedback. They have to have the courage to point out issues so that you know what's not working. If someone can't find anything wrong with your book, then they're just not looking, as there's no such thing as a perfect book, especially one that hasn't been edited. If you don't know anyone suitable or aren't confident about asking, you can try joining an online writing group such as Wattpad, Scriggler or Quotev. Trial your chapters on a relevant site. Get engaged with the writing community there, and that might help you find good beta readers. Although it's spelt B-E-T-A, many people also pronounce it as better. Maybe they think they're better readers, I don't know. But find people who read books in the genre in which you're writing and approach them to pre-read your book and give you honest feedback. And make sure you thank them in your acknowledgements, especially if they're emerging writers themselves. Every writer needs all the publicity they can get. So that's my summary of what editors and proofreaders do and how they can help you produce the best book you're capable of. And did you see what I did there? I ended a sentence in a preposition. I can feel them all cringing from here. I'm Jenny Mosher. As always, thanks for listening and happy writing.